All right, let's jump right into it. Welcome to today's Explainer. Today, we're taking on a seriously fascinating puzzle. We're going to completely decode a highly repetitive, emotionally charged, and honestly almost stream of consciousness speech that's been making the rounds online. Now, at first glance, the source text can feel pretty chaotic, right? Just looping back on itself over and over again. But if we actually take a step back and look closely, there is a very deliberate prophetic narrative hidden inside it that tells us a lot about the current societal climate. So our goal today is to cut through all that confusion and map out the core themes of this incredibly unique message.
Here is our roadmap for today. First up, the vow and service. Second, symbols of the message. Third, analyzing deception and money. And finally, independence in April 2026. Let's get started.
Starting with part 1, the vow and service, which really serves as the spiritual foundation for everything we're about to discuss. To really get this, we absolutely have to ground ourselves in the concept of a panata. You're going to hear this word a lot. It basically translates to a solemn vow or promise. And this is crucial because the speaker constantly uses this idea to frame their entire message. They aren't talking about political ambition here. They are framing their service to the nation as a strict, non-negotiable divine obligation. They genuinely feel they are answering to a higher power, which totally explains that intense, relentless energy in their delivery. Think about this metaphor of a trumpet that pops up in the text. It's actually a pretty brilliant way to look at leadership from their perspective. A trumpet doesn't create its own music, does it? No. It literally just amplifies the breath or the spirit that flows through it. The speaker is essentially telling us that their words only matter because they are just an instrument, faithfully passing along a divine message without twisting it for their own gain. So, when we take all that looping, erratic phrasing, and distill it down, the speaker's mandate really rests on 3 clear pillars. First, acting as that trumpet of the Spirit. Second, taking on the burden of continuous prayer for the people. And third, offering a lifelong, selfless service to the nation. That is the absolute bedrock of their identity in this message. Moving right along to section 2, symbols of the message. Let's unpack some of these wild metaphors the speaker uses when they get frustrated. If you read through the transcript, you'll see the words water and the name Thomas popping up out of nowhere, but they aren't random at all. This actually marks a massive shift in the text. The speaker pivots from talking about their pure spiritual vows to venting about societal betrayal, and they use these specific words as a shorthand for their irritation. Notice how perfectly these metaphors work. Water is completely fluid. It washes things away. In this context, it represents empty promises that hold no solid form. And the name Thomas? That's a direct nod to the biblical doubting Thomas. The speaker even calls public skepticism a symptom, showing just how deeply annoyed they are. They are incredibly frustrated by a society that hears the truth, but just lets it slip through their fingers like water. All right, part 3, analyzing deception and money. This is where the conflict becomes super specific and really heats up. We are looking at a massive contrast here. On one side, you have the speaker's ultimate ideal, pure, selfless service driven by that panata. But on the exact opposite side is the reality they are protesting, a completely transactional world run on empty promises, deceit, and above all, the act of asking for money. The speaker is drawing a massive line in the sand to separate themselves from leaders who just exploit the public for cash. You know what really stands out? This vividly recurring image of a woman accepting payment for a promise. In the broader context of this speech, it's not a literal story. It's a heavy metaphor for systemic corruption. It highlights how covenants are broken and how genuine trust has basically been replaced by cold, hard cash. It's a really profound critique of modern transactionality. And here is the speaker's proposed fix for all that corruption. They are making it crystal clear that their vow does not involve asking for money. For them, true service means breaking that transactional cycle entirely. They're arguing that the real currency of leadership shouldn't be money, it should be conversation, just honest, transparent dialogue with the people. Which brings us to the final section, Independence and April 2026. This is where the whole thing crescendos into a very clear prophetic vision. When you synthesize the final loops of the text, you see exactly what the end game is. The ultimate goal is the transformation of the Philippines into a truly godly nation. They're envisioning a true independence rooted in divine order.
And what's super interesting is how heavily this relies on the past. They demand a deep respect for tradition and keep bringing up the first president, implying that to move forward, society has to return to its original, uncorrupted values. And then, bam, dropped right into the middle of this chaotic stream of consciousness text is a highly specific date that stands out like a neon sign. April 2nd, 2026.
Despite how much the speech loops and repeats itself, this exact date is rock solid every single time. It is the anchor. In a sea of abstract metaphors about water and trumpets, April 2nd, 2026 is stunningly concrete. For the speaker, this is the definitive deadline. It's the exact moment when the vow is fulfilled, the corruption ends, and true independence is finally realized. It literally gives this entire movement a ticking clock. So, to wrap up our analysis, I want to leave you with something to chew on. We've just decoded a massive, prophetic vision aimed squarely at 2026, but it's paired with a very grounded plea for simple, honest conversation and daily prayer. So, what is the true measure of a vow like this? Is it found in those grand, world-shifting future prophecies, or is it actually in the quiet, daily grind of selfless service? It's a fascinating tension to think about when we consider what true devotion really looks like. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. Keep questioning, keep digging into the details, and I will see you next time.